We will then hear from Betty Bugusu. Is Betty here? She's Managing Director of Purdue's International Food Technology Center. She will describe a project that is exploring means of enhancing incomes of smallholder farmers in East Africa by linking their food crops to specific markets through the development of economically viable food technologies. And she'll be speaking on the development of markets for local food crop to enhance incomes and improve food security for smallholder farmers in East Africa. Betty?
Okay, thank you, Dr. Bemet, for that introduction. As he mentioned, I'm from the Food Science Department, managing the International Food Technology Center. This is one of the 5 centers in the Department of Food Science, and actually the youngest center. And I will refer to it as IFTC as we go along. So I thought I'd just give you a highlight of what I'm going to be talking about in terms of an outline. Just briefly describe to you what IFT is, what we are doing, what we are all about, and then dive into the specific study that GIP pre-funded for this particular conference. And most importantly, discuss with you the outcomes of this particular study in terms of what kind of doors it has opened for us, ongoing, and some potential doors in the future. And finally, open it up to discussion. So IFTC is, as I said, the newest center in the Department of Food Science. Out there, you can see this is the building, the Food Science building. It's currently named Philip E. Nelson Hall of Food Science. And I'll tell you a little bit of why the name was changed from Food Science Department to Philip Nelson. Philip Nelson was the head of department for a long time. He actually initiated the department. And in the year 2007, he won the World Food Prize for his work in aseptic processing. This is a technology in food that enhances shelf life of especially fruits. And this technology has been used heavily by PepsiCo to make the juices, the Tetra Pak juices you take from the stores. So it's really been big. It has helped a lot of developing economies be able to process a lot of their fruits, especially orange. And now we have tankers of orange juice that is being shipped from Brazil to the US. So it's really been very instrumental. So after Dr. Phil Nelson received that prize, he decided that he wants to use that recognition to enhance a lot of his work in the global arena. And so he started this International Food Technology Center, which I'm managing now. Our mission is to expand the markets and to reduce food losses, and especially in developing countries. Although our technologies are relevant to both the developed and developing countries, our focus really is on developing countries. Currently, we have a lot of work in Africa, especially in Western Africa, and we're looking to extend into other parts of Africa, East Africa, and that's what this study is all about. So being a food processing center, our areas of focus usually revolve around value addition. For those who don't know value addition, just adding value to the product so that you can increase your profit margins from the raw commodity. And then market development, which is very key. We shall see later on that's one of the major challenges of farmers who are mostly smallholder farmers in developing countries. And then health and nutrition, an area that looks at how can we enhance our processing technologies so that we maintain a lot of the nutrition in those products and even enhance them some more. And then obviously food quality and food safety is big for us because we've seen what the kind of food safety issues that we've seen in the news lately. With this simple representation of the food supply chain from production to markets, I just wanted to highlight the area where we are playing the key role. This is the processing. Obviously, it's after harvest. We have post-harvest handling. I see Dr. Ilelji in the audience who does a lot of work in this area of post-harvest handling, which includes storage, transportation, distribution, and also carries along as we go towards the markets. So as we look at this area, we see that as we go up the value chain, the value of the commodities increase. And so we see that we play a major role here in adding value to these commodities so that the farmers can make more money out of that. Unfortunately, we have seen that over the years, only 5% of international development budget is actually allocated to studying issues after harvest. The rest of it, 95%, goes to this area, production, looking at enhancing productivity and issues that respond to increasing production. And little attention is paid to issues after harvest, which are really the key because that's where the people make a lot of their money. So this center comes in to help to involve some of this, to engage some of the actors in this value chain so that we can increase the value of agriculture. And as we have seen over the past, even with more production, we've seen it's resulted to less income because of reduced prices and a lot of food losses that result from lack of use or, lack of markets for the surplus products. Now, these are some of the challenges that we see out there in relation to food processing. The major challenge, as I've already alluded to, is the lack of markets. This is just, poor integration of commodity into markets, production into markets. And this can be as a result of many things. It could range from infrastructure, from lack of technologies, all the way to policy issues that need to be implemented by specific governments so that they can exploit the market. On the right-hand side here, you see women at the harvest season for mangoes. All these women, each one of them is trying to sell their mangoes to the same consumers. And we can see in the background how much is going to waste. These are very highly nutritious, delicious mangoes that could be converted into something that can be used either down the road or even now, but it's not taking place as we speak. We have a lot of issues with food safety. You've heard about aflatoxin in corn. Some of the work that we do can help alleviate the problems with aflatoxin. And we have a whole range of other things that are going on in these countries. This is a farmer drying their corn outside of their household. We have food safety issues related to that. We have laws, physical laws and otherwise, that will result from this kind of situation. Just the mere lack of a dryer really causes this kind of situation. This is a woman. I took this picture on the highway in Kenya. This woman is drying her corn along the roadside. This is a main highway. She needs the corn to eat later this evening, but she has no way to dry it. So her best solution is this is black concrete. She can put her corn there. By evening, she'll come back to gather it and go cook it. As we can see, it's a food safety issue right away. But what can she do? There are animals walking here, people walking, vehicles driving around, and it's just not safe for her. The family would be sick and she will never know what caused the sickness. Fortunately, a lot of these are boiled, but there are situations where they are eaten in a less processed form that result into safety issues. So these are some of the challenges that we are really looking at as a center. So in terms of what our goals are, really we are looking to improve food security and to enhance markets for these farmers so we can improve the economic growth in the specific regions. We want to increase availability of nutritious and safe foods for these people. And we also want to try and help the farmers tap into the global market economy so that they can make money out of that. And in that case, making farming a profitable business rather than just a subsistence kind of activity that is just for food for them. We do that using 3 pillars of activities. Excuse me. We do technology development and innovation. That's mostly research looking at various products and processes, and particularly looking to mechanize a lot of these processes so that we can enhance the quality of the outcome, the resulting products. We also do a little bit of technology adoption and entrepreneurship, and I will dwell mostly at that in the course of this presentation, because that's where we've had a lot of success in Africa, helping them. The small-scale, medium-scale food processors, they are set up enterprises that then serve as markets for smallholder farmers. Our successes are mostly in West Africa, but we shall see how we were trying to transition into East Africa. And obviously, capacity building as an institution of higher learning, that's part of our engagement, looking at higher education and even other activities, short-term training, either for food processors or for local expertise. So this is just the model that shows how we do our work and kind of just summarizes what I've just described up there, and more so giving you some specific kind of outcomes that we are seeing with this kind of model in place at the different levels of the value chain. Now, this is the work that we have done in West Africa in helping the small processors improve their processing businesses and even new ones get their processing started. We have mostly worked in the area of cereals, and in particular the small cereals, the sorghums and millets, are often referred to as orphan crops, and yet they are the crops that grow the most in these areas. And because of the environmental situation there, they have to grow this. And more so because this is what they consume. So we are helping them to develop products that are market worth. You've heard about the migration from rural to urban areas. So we see people moving into urban areas and still wanting to eat some of the products that they are used to and not being able to get them into the markets. We've also seen a high influx of imported products coming in and being purchased. So we know that the market is there. And the idea is, how can we tap into this market? So we have worked with a lot of local institutions, mostly the National Agriculture Research Centers. These are centers that are charged by the specific governments to conduct research in agriculture. And they range, as I said, mostly have focused on production, but now we are engaging them to move beyond production, actually to implement some of the varieties, good, high-yielding varieties that they have already developed. In this particular case, we are processing a product called couscous. Couscous is an agglomerated product. It's a product that has granules, and it's made, the traditional way of making it is very intense. And so we are mechanizing that process so that they can have better quality products, and also they can have good, nicely packaged products that then they can put in the market. And this is one of the outcomes of that program that we have in West Africa. We've worked in 3 countries, Niger, Mali, and Senegal. And we've seen great response. A lot of these processors are now in business. What we do is we set up what we are calling incubation centers. A lot of you maybe from management are familiar with incubation concepts. And this is where we establish all the processing line of equipment, and then we bring in the processors and give them hands-on training. And this center is a permanent structure that, we work in collaboration with the local partners. So the processors are able to come in and practice these things, and they're able to gain confidence on producing their own products and even testing the markets. We also work with them in business areas to help them develop business plans and go after funding to set up their own processing units. In some instances, over a period of time, a restricted period of time, maybe a year or so, we let them use the facility to process their own products and sell and make sure that they can make money out of it at a nominal fee. And then hoping that they can work on hone their business skills and try to get loans to do that. One of the limitations is that most of the loaning agencies out there are really on micro scale. The equipment we are talking about are beyond micro scale. So this is an equipment that will cost up to $5,000. And so it's very important for these people to understand that it's high-level investment, and they have to do a good job, and they have to be sure they can make a return on their investment so that they can get into this business. And this center is there to give them technical backstopping. So when they have problems with the equipment repair, what have you, they can come back to the incubation center and get that kind of support. And this has been very attractive to a lot of financiers in the region, especially in Niger. The higher scale financiers have been able to give loans to women groups and even some processors to set up their own processing units. So we wanted to see how we can expand this kind of work in other regions of Africa, as I mentioned. And so we got this support from GPRI to be able to do just that. And so we did a short needs assessment study in East Africa. These are the 3 countries we focused on: Uganda, Kenya, and Tanzania. And so I'm from Kenya. That's my native country. But that's not the reason why I went there. Anyway, so we went there and met with a host of institutions. Our key aim for this was really to establish partnerships in those regions, you know, specific institutions that we can work with, those who have a mindset of getting into the markets and not just focusing on production. And so this was very important for us to meet a lot of them and be able to synthesize and gauge what their interests are, and also just, you know, create visibility about what we are doing and how important it is. I'll tell you, we got a lot of enormous support and just interest from many of these groups that we met. I already mentioned the goals of the study there. So this is just a sample of some of the institutions we met. You know, I think we went up to almost 20 groups, both in Kenya, all in Kenya, Uganda, and Tanzania. I'll tell you, I probably slept in 20 beds during this trip. And at the end of it, I was ready to come back home to my bed. But anyway, it was very fulfilling and very rewarding because all these institutions saw this need. They are very interested. Some of them have been thinking about it. Kenya has just set up a whole ministry department at the ministry level to look at value addition and processing for agricultural commodities. Others are still struggling, but overall, all the countries are committing much more to agriculture production than they have done in a long time. So food processing is a big part of it so that they can get into the trade. And in addition to that, many of them are looking to see how can they engage expertise from outside of the region so that they can be able to succeed. And that's just what we were bringing to them at that point in time. Well, a few more institutions from Kenya and from Uganda and Tanzania. So looking at this, we also wanted to identify what kind of commodities really have potential to exploit the markets out there. There were a whole range of them. And I think that the needs are there. It's just the resources and the capacity to be able to exploit a lot of these. These are just highlights of the ones that we saw that may have potential, and we also have expertise in some of these. If you look at the cereals, maize, sorghum, and millet, these are areas that we have expertise that we can work with them. Root crops, especially the cassava, sweet potatoes, and others that we don't have expertise, but as a center can help coordinate what kind of expertise they can get out of this. Things like fruits. I saw a lot of fruits, mangoes, passion fruit, avocado, pineapple, a lot of them just eaten as fruit, and not a whole lot going on in the area of value addition and processing. And then obviously vegetables was also a bigger one. A lot of these also are high in nutrients, and it would be very nice to tap into that nutritional value of these products so that you can enhance the nutrition level of the consumers. Other commodities that are outside of what we do, livestock is big for us, and we haven't done a lot of work there, but we have the potential to get into that, aquaculture. There was also a lot of activity going on in what they call the cash crops, the cashew nuts, coffee, tea, and pyrethrum. So we are currently just focusing on the crops and hoping that we can move on as the center grows and enlarges, we can move on to a lot of these other commodities. Now, just looking at what is the state of food processing in East Africa, obviously the food industry is really still at the infancy stage. We have a few multinational companies out there. Most of them don't even source from the farmers. They actually import, like juice producers import juice concentrates. So it's a shame to see, mango juice concentrate coming out of India and mangoes going to rot in Africa. So these are opportunities that we really want to explore. It's not easy. The situations we work in, a lot of companies say they don't have enough quantities to source. And so that's an area that is unique that has to be looked into. I think I'm running out of time, so I'll run through. This is a laundry list of the challenges that we identified, and we have since prioritized some of them and looked at what we need to focus on. And so I will move very quickly. These are some of the technologies that we saw in some of the institutions we visited. They are attempting to do something, but they are just not doing enough or, to meet the demand that is out there. So what we are doing now, I want to focus to spend the next 3 or 4 minutes just to talk about the outcomes. So we have had a lot of success in this. When we visited, all the institutions we visited were interested to work with us. They are interested in getting our technical expertise and helping them to set up some of these centers like we have done in West Africa. Out of that, we were able to, this morning we had a talk about empath. We are able to get into one of the programs that is supporting the nutrition focus for empath, which is providing good nutrition for the HIV/AIDS patients. And that's the African Leafy Vegetable Project. This is led by a professor in horticulture department, Dr. Steve Weller. And so we are there to provide expertise in processing and making sure that the high nutrients in these vegetables are enhanced and they can reach the consumers. And in addition to that, we also were engaged by one of the largest non-profit organizations in the region, Kilimo Trust. This organization is focused on the East Africa community as a whole, so covers all the 5 countries within the community, the 3 that I've mentioned, including Rwanda and Burundi. And this company has engaged us to provide technical expertise to expand trade. And in particular, we are consulting with them to work on the rice and beans market. So I just got back from there a few weeks ago, looking at the various products that they can start to embark on. And this has opened a big door because we are going to look at issues that affect the whole region and not just any one of the specific countries that I looked at. We are also working with them to develop proposals for funding. The one that we already put in is a USAID concept note on bean processing. And we think we have a good chance to get that. These are the areas that, you know, this project really opened for us to get into the CGIAR centers. ICRISAT is one of them. And we've had a lot of discussions with them as I speak. And there's possibility that we can provide some support for them in food processing. A few other organizations that we've talked to, GAIN is the Global Alliance for Improved Nutrition. They are interested in fortification technologies, which we as the center can provide. And then we are also looking to build capacity in the region. We have a potential to bring in a master's student at Moi University to Purdue, and the negotiations are ongoing. As we speak now, we are preparing a large proposal to the John Deere Foundation to go. We were invited to prepare that proposal so we can go set up these incubation units in East Africa. So this was really a big visibility program for us, and I think that we have exploited and we are going to make good use out of it. Thank you very much.
Yes, please, Joanne.
Thank you for this very interesting presentation. But my attention was immediately drawn to your meetings that you had, and it would seem that the challenges that you're facing with food processing would involve as well partnerships, private-public partnerships. But I did not see any input or meetings with the private sector to help meet these challenges and to help finance these challenges in the future. Would you address that issue, please?
Yes. So in these parts of the world, the private sector really mostly is the NGOs, the non-profit organizations. And some of them that I mentioned, like FinTrack in Kenya, is the one that would provide financing. We met with a few, the fewest food processing units that are there, the ones that are currently doing some level of processing, both for domestic and for local. And those ones mostly are struggling, and mostly because they don't have the technology. We were not able to get meetings with many of the banks that provide the funding there, but we think that that's something that is coming down, the road. So as we get in there and start to do specific, work, starting to do some tangible work on the ground, definitely this is an area that, eventually has to be taken over by the private sector. In fact, one of the questions I get from the public sector is, where does the public good end and where does the private, start? So I think that, it's an area that it's a must to partner with the private sector. And there are a few of those that are beginning to happen.
Yes, Dr. Rao.
I was looking at food security. We are very much interested in India about food security. We find that in India and many other countries, including Africa, the storage of food, the post-harvest loss of food is 40%.
Yes.
Very, very high. In other words, you lose as much food as you eat.
Yes.
I mean, I think, are we doing something about that? Or?
Yeah, and I never gave you the statistics of those kind of things, losses. We've had even up to statistics of 50% loss for fruits, grains. Dr. Elelji can address a little bit of that because he works specifically in the storage area. We in the processing see ourselves as just one of the components of the value chain, and we cannot work on our own. Even when we start processing, we have to link up. That's why I brought up the whole issue of linkages. So it is a continuum on the whole value chain, and none of that can be left behind if we want to be successful in food security.
I observed one thing that's relevant in Arusha, in the marketplace. And one way to learn about a community is to go to the marketplace. And the amount of bananas that are put out for sale is astronomical. You find bananas everywhere, and yet they're so ripe. You know that if they don't sell them during the day, they're going to rot. They're going to be disposed of. And I would guess, visiting the market at least in the morning and later in the afternoon, I don't think they sold more than 10 or 15% of what they had displayed. It's really incredible. One more question, yes, Susan.
So a lot of your pictures are of women selling this produce, and we know that small farmers in Africa are majority women. Are the women also the people who are starting the processing businesses? Can you talk about how many women entrepreneurs in processing there are out there, and any issues that they might be encountering culturally or economically or otherwise?
Yes. That's a very good question. So both women and men are in the processing. In fact, most women come together as women groups and attempt to process. When we go into these systems, we don't really, and we find that most of the women are the farmers. We in processing know that the farmer cannot be again the processor. So what we are doing is we are focusing on people who have interest and who have the potential to process, to add value to these crops and to move them up. We see that the women will benefit from this if they have a market to sell that. So we don't necessarily go out to look for women processors, but they are there, in particularly in women groups, doing some level of processing. So those that are there, we focus, we work with them closely. And I think that in many of the areas, if there's been any attempt to process, it's these women groups that are trying to process. So even when you are not looking for them, you find out that they are really the ones that you have to work with. Not sure if I answered your question fully.
Thank you, Betty.